Hello, I'm Stijn de Wandel from Belgium, and you are listening to the Bike Shop Society podcast.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't even know.
I love that.
I didn't know we had that loaded. I'm going to hear it. I'm going to listen to Stijn one more time. You mind?
Stijn, go for it.
Hello, I'm Stijn de Wandel from Belgium, and you are listening to the Bike Shop Society podcast.
Stijn.
Podcast.
They were very nice. Those were some people that stopped by the bike shop. There was a group early in the summer.
You told me this. I remember.
Yeah, and I got them to do a podcast. I know maybe I'll throw it in at the end.
I was going to say, did you ever publish it?
No, we never published it. I think we moved on to something, or it may have been around the time when we had Ultra Romance on, and we got onto other things, and
it happens.
Yeah, and it was a group that came through, and it was at different times. And I was just trying to figure out a way to work it in, because I just interviewed them about their bike ride and why they were in town. Lovely people, but I really caught them off guard, so it was kind of random, And
nice.
And so maybe there was some trouble with the audio as well, and at that time I wasn't very good with the editing software yet. But maybe I'll do something with that today, or
cool.
Either this one or the following
in
podcast.
Post.
Yeah, we'll just tack it on somewhere. They were very nice. They lived in the he lived in the shadows of the Cormont.
Whoa!
In Belgium, he could see the Veeps tents.
Eau de Quaramont. The old Quaramont. Yeah, that's the famous climb in the Tour of Flanders, the Ronde van Vlaanderen, for those who don't know, which is, I think, the biggest sports day in all of Belgium. It's like their Super Bowl, for lack of a better analogy, and country shuts down and everyone watches this frickin' bike race. And the Quaramont is one of the, I'd say, the best climb in the race, the most anticipated, if not one of the most. So that's really cool, man.
The Europeans are cool because they don't say VIPs, they say Veeps.
Veeps.
They just say it's a word for them, as opposed to us. VIP.
Right.
We'll say VIP.
Vips.
Yeah. Occasionally, you'll hear someone say they're Veeps, but it's more like VEEPS, I think. But
when I hear Veep, I think of the show Veep. The Vice President show. I never watched that series, but I guess it was hugely popular. Excuse me. My Invisaligns are not cooperating tonight. But I thought Veep, that's what I think of when I think of that. What's funny, though, when I go to, well, I shouldn't say it that way, like I do it often, but when I have been fortunate enough to go to a couple of those big mega cycling events in Europe, and I've never been to the Tour of Flanders, I want to go. It's definitely something I really want to do. It's funny. I've been in just one or two times I've been in the VIP situation, just like through hook or crook. Like someone got me a ticket, or not that I snuck in, but I got in somehow. And I've always found like they're not that fun. No, they're not that great. It's like people you don't know there. I don't want to generalize, but usually it's like, I don't know, people have money. I don't really identify with them so much. I'm sure they're lovely people, but the best VIP spots are on the frickin' climbs. You go out early and you hang out and you kind of party. Like, I don't know, that for me is like the real VIP, but that means like you're doing it yourself.
Yeah. As someone who worked in the event, a little bit in the event space, Danny, you did. Those Veeps or Vips tend to be sponsor, clients, and
everyone's got to connect.
Yeah, there's somebody there with who knows somebody or works at a sponsor and got a ticket. On occasion, you'll have actual fans in there who won access, and they're very out of place because they're super excited and kind of bouncing around, and
they got the T-shirt on, and they're like, "When do I get my autograph?"
Yeah, and they're you can tell. You can kind of like you probably amongst that crowd. Everybody else is there just drinking the wine and just enjoying.
I'm like,
the
where's Tom Boonen?
Yeah, watching the race. Whereas everybody else.
I got to get my profile for all my socials.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. So anyway, Eau de Quaramont, frickin' world's best climb in my opinion. That's so cool though. So yeah, I think you should weave that into tonight's episode. And good to see you, Joe. How are things?
Good, man. Good. I've it's a rainy day here in Chicago. A little gray. You know, it's kind of fall is really kicking in now. So it's not it's nice. I'm adjusting to the weather. Also, I have a wife that just arrived from Europe today. So
that was today?
Yeah. Yeah, I was over at O'Hare International Airport picking her up today.
ORD, baby.
She's already passed out in the room, down at the other side of the house.
I was gonna say, you mentioned this before. Like, tradition is she'll come back and maybe freshen up, have a bite to eat, and then pass out. And you were telling me before, like, because I think we had the same situation before. I could be wrong. And it was like, I'll be free. I'm like, really? But that's her MO. So did she have a lovely time? Is she happy to be back? What's the deal? Did you get the down low on the ride home or what?
I think we actually talk and converse more when she's out of town than when she's actually here. You know, when she's here, she's in the other room watching, The Good Doctor or something. Some sort of Netflix series or something on television, and I'm digesting some YouTube videos in the other room.
Okay.
But when she's we have our shows for sure. You know, there are certain nights when we'll watch things or do things together in the house. But when she's overseas, we FaceTime and like talk, and because we like, I don't know, just converse about things. So
isn't that funny, human psychology, how that works? So that really makes sense to me. I've been in maybe some similar situations, but isn't that funny how that works? Like the farther you are away, the more you want to talk. I've totally had that scenario play out for me too.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Like, like I feel beloved. Because
it's like, how you doing? Tell me about your day. Don't skip a detail. No, go back. Tell me that again. Like, oh, that sounds amazing. And normally you're like, hey,
no, absolutely. It's like,
what's for dinner? What's for dinner?
I need the bathroom. Get out. Yeah, that's it.
It's so funny.
That really is it. That's really it. I mean, but no, I mean, it's good. I think we are, and I think we've talked about this several times that. The hope at some point is to be able to kind of bounce back and forth a little bit. Certainly in the winter, I'm trying to set up the winter headquarters there in beautiful Alicante and along the Mediterranean there in Spain,
east coast of Spain.
Yeah, it's the one of the premier cycling destinations in the world. For pro teams and cyclists all over Europe and the world. So fortunate to have a place there and a place that I can go to or that we can go to, Danny. And so I'm just trying to get that going. For her, she's visiting family and helping her parents out a little bit. Aging parents.
She's not just chugging Rioja every day. She's actually doing stuff.
Yeah, although the Rioja chugging, is certainly a part of it. It's just part of the it's part of the culture and around her house.
Of course,
they definitely live the Mediterranean lifestyle and enjoy every bit of it. Her dad's very old school that way. The big afternoon meal and the way you think of Spain. He's in his 90s. God bless him. About to be 90, around 90.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
So, old school that way, 2 o'clock, actually you start dialing it up at around 1:30, 1:15, 1:30. You bring out some snacks, some almonds and little some potato chips. Potato chips there are not something you just grab.
Get the
out
saltiness
of a bag.
going.
Oh yeah.
Get the nice little, to get the palate going and whet the appetite a little bit.
Yeah, some white wine, some cold white wine, and just kind of get ready for that midday meal that they all enjoy there.
This is getting me hungry, and I just ate.
Oh man, yeah, and that's every day, Danny. Every day. In fact, we were talking about it on the car ride home about how much people eat there, and just like eat, the how in some homes there, the whole life revolves around eating. You wake up, you eat, you're snacking, you have another meal in the middle of the day, come home, another, little something before you got to eat a little something before you go to bed, Danny. I mean, might die.
So it's the opposite of intermittent fasting.
Oh, very, yeah.
It's like non-fasting.
No,
just keep eating.
You just keep eating, it's just keep topped off, top it off all the time. Never let it down, Danny. I guess part of it is just the walking all the time, the activity level. I don't know what it is, but
correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense, we probably have all heard about the French style, and I lived there a little bit, but the idea was they eat this very rich food, and some of it's deemed quite unhealthy. And there's that famous book called French Women Don't Get Fat or something like that. And it's always been this thing. It's like, why is that? Well, the portions they eat, it's all about the portions. So they have very, very tiny portions, but what they do have can be quite rich, fatty, etc. It's delicious, but their whole thing is like portions are quite small. We go to Olive Garden.
Oh yeah.
We've got food for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
And there it's like, no. So
wow. Yeah, I mean, I hope
I don't know if Spain's like that, but in France, it's all about the portion sizes.
There's certainly portions. I mean, you get your plate, but they're generous. They're not American, American generous for sure.
That's a good thing. Am I? Yeah.
Well,
I think if an American went to France or maybe possibly Spain, they might be like, "Hey, man, I got ripped off. Look, you call this a meal?" Yeah, I don't know. When I was there, I never had a problem. I always enjoyed it. But I think they definitely, I think maybe we talked about this previously, but the one thing that I picked up on right away was they don't do doggy bags. Like you could probably get a doggy bag, and maybe times have changed. I haven't been there in a spell.
It's changing.
But it's not a doggy bag culture.
No,
at least it wasn't.
It wasn't.
Here, it's almost like expected. Like if you go to a restaurant, it's like people almost assume they've kind of planned. That's my lunch for the next day. That's whatever.
How many boxes do you need?
Right? It's interesting. It's part of the culture, and I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying it's very different. And in France, if you saw a doggy bag in France back in the day, it was just like, oh la la, like who is this person?
Yeah, it was poor form. Like you just didn't ask. I mean, it was like it was a rude thing to do that, like to take your food home. But I have seen that is becoming a thing. Because carry out is now a thing. I mean, there was a time when. Danny, when I first got to Europe, the thought of walking down the street and drinking your coffee was like unheard of. Nobody walked around and drank a cup of coffee. You stop in a bar and you had a cup of coffee. But now there's Starbucks there, and like our culture and our. I mean, I think a lot of it is just driven by television and what they see on TV. I mean, I think those things are just those things have really made it into the society there now. They have little smash burgers, or they have their version of like like the burger with 6 patties and all the cheese and the bacon and all that stuff now. So like all the bad stuff, like all the stuff. Like I want to go over there and just tell people, no, that's not the good stuff. That's not. I know it's what you see on TV, but that's not the good stuff. And
there is a lot of that. Yeah,
their idea of someone who is overweight. I remember back in the day, their idea of someone overweight was kind of. I remember sitting with a group of friends, and they were telling me about how their big friend, the big guy from the group was coming over, and you can't wait, like. You got to see this guy, and I'm expecting,
Gordito.
Yeah, I'm expecting. I don't know, Fat Albert. Like one of those, like a big guy, right? American big,
husky.
Yeah, and
heavy set.
And when the guy showed up, I was like, "This is the guy?" He was. This is the guy. Everybody was like, you can't like. When this guy shows up, like you won't believe what you're going to see. And
try not to look at him.
He was certainly chubby, he was, by Yeah, I mean, he was certainly a little overweight, but by American standards, Danny, that was not, that was nothing. That was nothing. And I remember after that first trip, friends from Europe coming over to visit, and just how they were blown away by the size of people here in the United States.
Oh yeah, it's a little. We take it for granted, but especially back then, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, like, I mean, it was a real thing. And we have, unfortunately, and it's not just us, but you see obesity like in Ireland, UK, it's pushing into continental Europe, and it's going east. And it's not like these countries haven't had their issues, but I think we really have exported it, and a lot of it is through culture, pop culture, film, TV, etc. And you're absolutely right, because I do remember back in the day, like it was kind of horrendous. Like you would go to on a trip to Europe, a week or two, you go to maybe Spain or France or Italy, and you kind of get used to it, and you kind of don't realize it at first, but then you're like, oh wow, like everyone here is like quite slim and like more importantly, healthy. Like they seem healthy, they walk a lot, they look, their eyes are clear, their skin's clear, they look good. And I don't know, they're going up like these long flights of stairs, and it's amazing. And then you get back to like O'Hare, and you get that like shell shock. That boom, and you're like, whoa, all of a sudden. And then it's just a fact, right?
It was striking. It was striking.
Traditionally, it strikes you as like, wow, everyone seems really large here. And like I said, it's a complicated thing, but that's my memory as well, is coming back and seeing people, definitely more back in the day. And unfortunately, for various reasons, it's a problem in a lot of countries now, but I definitely do remember that kind of shock. And I'm not trying to play it up. It was literally a thing where I was like, whoa, like I'm concerned about our society. Like people are large. That's not great.
My friend Moss, someone I worked with at a bike shop, his mom was in the furniture business, and she used to import furniture from Europe, like for, she did a lot of types of like commercial furniture for like restaurants and food courts and things like that, outdoor spaces. And I remember her telling me that the chairs coming from Europe, they had to make them 20%. They had to scale them up about 20% for the U.S. market. Because people here were bigger. So I always remember her telling me that, it wasn't our imagination. It was right. True. It was a real thing. So
it is a real thing. And I too remember, talking to people like, hey, when I was in the industry, and in quotes, like, hey, Danny, we want to get you some kit. We're going to send you out some new shorts and this and that. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I'd love to try some. And what size are you? And I'm like, oh, well, and we'd always have that wink, like, well, adjust for American sizes or Euro sizes. So like, I remember back in the day, like Castelli, some of these brands, like they didn't even have XL. It was just L. And the L was like for an American small. I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah.
Like, now they have like 2XL, 3XL. Like it's unbelievable.
And even now with some of that like real fancy Euro kit, it's still a little, it's snug. Like, like a large Euro cut jersey is like, I really gotta, like, I can wear that at the
suck it in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. July, August, I might fit, but forget about it. And
maybe,
forget about it.
Late
November,
July,
December.
early August, you're doing pretty well. Otherwise you got the Skims, or the Spanx.
Yeah. Yeah, I go back to the traditional North American brands. Your Louis Garneau jersey or something.
There's always
something you got laying around.
There's always the cheating T-shirt and flannel and jorts.
Which is your your kit of choice these days. Yeah.
That's my go-to. I'm loving it. No, I do still like her up, but it's definitely a thing. And if the thing is, if you ride a lot, like anyone who listens to this and who rides a lot, like they're like, whatever. But it's like, if you don't ride a lot, then it's like, well, what are you going to wear? We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
it's kind of a thing. But full circle, your better half is back.
Mm-hmm.
And how are things going at the shop, man? This is like almost mid-October. What's the status right now for bike shops, including yours?
For us, it's just certainly slowed down. The amount of repairs coming in has really slowed down quite a bit. We're getting a lot of spot repairs on the weekends. People out there riding. You still have your brake adjustments, but things like those tune-ups, those yearly tune-ups, those things have kind of died off. On the other hand, we're also starting to receive bikes. So some bikes are starting to
just
come
in time for
just
winter.
Just in time.
Oh my God!
So I have gotten some new bikes in. It's if you're a shop that's able to do it and it's the right product, it's probably not a bad thing. So for me, it's like the first time I've seen real multiple salsa products show up. And I haven't seen a lot of salsa bikes at all this year. So I'm happy to take those. Cannondale too is another company that's had a lot of trouble kind of fulfilling orders. And I've started to see some of their product start trickling into the shop. And I just got to notice that I'm getting some fat bikes, a couple of fat bikes. So some things that I actually need and some bikes that from some brands that I haven't seen in, close to a year or two, starting to come in. So, not all of it is stuff that I don't want. Some of them are nicer bikes, and I know that I know that I'll sell them and come the spring or maybe even over the winter to somebody who's looking for them. So I don't mind taking them in. So yeah, just building that stuff, shipping some bikes. Yeah, I mean normal bike stuff. But it's at a pace now where it's actually getting kind of enjoyable at the shop again. Organizing, planning, and getting ready to just do some remodeling, some painting for the first time. Get our retail. Now that it looks like we're going to have some product and be able to get back to a more normal retail, store balance where we're doing repairs and sales. Start focusing on that again, just getting our sales floor kind of tidied up a little bit and start thinking about displays again, stuff we just haven't done in 2 years because we've been essentially a repair shop, void of the bikes that we want to sell. We're pretty, I've been selling whatever comes in. I've been selling stuff off of a waiting list or, the minute you take it out of the box, you're basically have been selling it over the last couple of years, and now you'll actually have a little bit of stock. So it's good. It's good. I'm looking forward to a little bit of a downtime.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's been a long season.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask, so we've talked about this a couple of times, and anyone who's in the industry knows this probably better than I do, but are you feeling the pressure of, I've heard, you've talked about it before, and are you feeling the pressure of this, all of a sudden, this deluge of inventory coming in, like lots and lots of bikes, stuff that was, kind of either ordered or meant to, be sent to you in the past? I feel like I've seen that. And actually I heard something, I think I sent you that link, Joe, but there was a podcast with our mountain biking friend, Gary Fisher. And I don't know if you got a chance to listen to it. I listened to the first third of it. It was very interesting. But point being, I think it was a week or two ago, people could find it if they just go to Gary Fisher's social media platforms. I'm sure he tweeted it. In fact, I know he at least tweeted it and maybe put it on his other platforms. But anyway, he talked a lot about the bike industry, of course. And one of the things he was saying is what we've said too is it's a very tricky time right now because there's so much inventory now coming in, and lots of shops, there's just too many bikes, and now people don't really need them.
Yep.
So anyway, are you feeling the brunt of that? Is it bad for you, or is it not so bad? What's it like for you as a small, kind of independent shop in the burbs?
For me personally, just because I didn't sign on to take on a bunch of bikes. I'm okay. There's maybe one or two brands that are definitely calling because they have a lot of bikes in their warehouse, and I'm a dealer, and by my dealer agreement calls for me to take on a certain amount of product every year. Like I've got to buy a certain amount of bikes to remain a dealer. So they're asking for an order or kind of poking around to try to get me to grab some bikes. But for the most part, I'm okay. I think I'll be okay taking on whatever it's coming in at a trickle for me. So I don't expect a truckload of bikes to show up anytime this winter, and I've been making room in case I do get a little bit of product in. So I think I'll be okay. Also, the companies are starting to realize what the situation is with bike shops, and they're starting. Usually how they work is they give you, they'll send you bikes and give you terms, which is basically, hey, we'll send you bikes and you pay us in 120 days or 90 days. And I think for some of the companies, they're so filled up with bikes at their warehouses that they're willing to give people very generous terms, like 6 months basically to pay them in order to make room for some of this product at their warehouses. They're having to do that. So
in a way you need that, right? Because now you're looking at what tell me if I'm wrong, but it's mid-October almost.
Yeah.
It's October 12th today we're recording. So mid-October, if you get 6 months, you're looking at Jan 1, January, February, March. I mean, you're not going to see a lot of traffic coming into the shop in the next 6 months anyway, right?
No, and then they're looking at you to pay a huge bill. So let's say you're a medium size shop who's taking on, I don't know, you can have $30,000, $40,000 worth of bikes show up, next week, right? And even if they give you 6 months, that puts you right at the beginning of spring to fork over this money. You haven't sold those bikes. Those bikes are probably still sitting on your floor by the time, by the time the bill is due. And so, I think the bike companies are starting to realize that, and they're starting to maybe build some incentives in, either discounting some of those bikes. I know there's some heavy discounting starting to happen in the bike world. So trying to get people trying to get shops that have maybe some reserves to buy that stuff up front for a discount, or they're extending those terms instead of the normal 3 months, they're giving you 6 months or maybe even 8 months. I haven't seen anything that far, but they're going to have to do something, because something's got to give. There's no way that they can, knowing the average bike shop, nobody has that kind of money laying around in cash to fork over for a bunch of bicycles that they're not going to sell for another 8 months, So
I was going to say, and then you factor in things like inflation and, this looming recession everyone's talking about, and layoffs. I mean, war. I mean, there's a lot going on in the economy in the world right now.
Yeah, who wants to take that kind of stuff on? And like, how much of that stuff are you going to sell? Especially if it's kind of entry level stuff. A lot of the bikes that are available right now, they're like $500-$600 bikes. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to be laying around for a long time. I think people that are somewhat well off, or at least not being affected so much by inflation, are still going to go out and buy the road bike that they want or the gravel bike that they want and spend the $2,000 or $3,000 on the bike that they want. But it's that person who's maybe looking at that entry level hybrid, the entry level road bike. The person who's like kind of weighing whether I fill the tank or just get a half a tank of gas, or those are the ones that are
Right.
definitely not going to be buying that $500, $600 bike this year, right? It's like, I'll wait. I'll wait to get a bike. And so, and that's the stuff that's available. That's the stuff that's clogging up the warehouses and stuff, all that entry level product, those basic hybrid bikes. I'm seeing that come through week after week, just open inventory on that stuff. So, the nice road bike, the bike industry has had problems and will continue to have problems filling orders for, like, let's say an Ultegra road bike, a carbon Ultegra road bike. I mean, those bikes will not be just laying around, in huge numbers at bike shops, and they're certainly out there. But I think that'll kind of continue into the spring. But that sub $1,000 product, there's going to be a lot of it. There's going to be a lot.
I have found, this is highly unscientific, but I have also found, I'm just thinking in very practical terms, but let's say you're like jonesing for a bike, but you can see a lot of bikes are out of stock. I know some are coming in, and let's say you're just going to the big four giant Specialized Trek, Cannondale, or even beyond to the Surleys and those, let's just say you're not really finding what you want. And again, I have seen like a replenishing. There are bikes coming in. But if you look to the secondhand market, so we're talking like Craigslist, eBay,
Facebook,
Pros Closet, if you're fancy, Facebook Marketplace. I check those, and again, this is just an unscientific one-person survey, but I don't really feel encouraged by what I see. It's pretty slim pickings for like a decent road bike. Like if you want something with it made in the past 10 years with at least like 105 or rival, if you can get Force or Ultegra, all the better. Something decent, not too beat up, not too worn, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I found it's pretty slim pickings, which maybe tells me people have bought those. And in fact, I sold one of my road bikes. I had an old Van Dessel, a carbon fiber, I called it my crit bike. It was a very stiff racing bike, which I was clearly kind of done with. And I ended up selling it. It had a rival mechanical on it. But that's sold, Joe, in about 48 hours. And I wasn't even trying hard. I took some nice pictures. I put a nice post up on Craigslist, and I had like 5 offers in the first day. And then someone bought it day 2 for the price I asked. Anyway, so I'm not sure if that's an indicator or if that's your sense, but and even in the secondhand market, the stuff I'm seeing, again, if you go to somewhere like Pros Closet, it's kind of a different game. Like they have a very thorough process. I find their bikes actually quite expensive.
Yeah, they sure
are. It reminds me a little bit of CarMax. Like I took at my brother's suggestion, I took my old Honda Accord to CarMax just as a gauge. He's like, just see what they would give you. And then like, I think his rule of thumb was like add 500 or 1,000 to that and then try to sell it like on eBay Motors or whatever. So anyway, I don't know. I just found in the secondhand market, and I check it pretty frequently. So this is unscientific, but not totally unscientific. It's kind of slim pickings, even in the secondhand market. So I don't know if that's been your experience or what you've been hearing on the street.
I think part of it is that those people with those road bikes haven't been able to replace them, so they're not selling them used. They haven't been able to.
And there are a ton of shitty bikes. Just to be clear, there are a ton of really shitty bikes.
Oh yeah,
like those weird, like 62 centimeter Cannondale, like just beat to hell. There's that, and then there's the 54 centimeter. Nice shape. But like, I cracked the seat stay. Oops. Like there's a lot of that stuff.
Just got to get it fixed. Just
got to, get a warranty on that frame set. But my point, it's like,
I think
it still seems pretty tricky.
Yeah. You haven't been able to replace that, the bike. So, you've got to hold on to what you have, and I think that there are a lot of people, road bikes don't get beat up like mountain bikes do. You can have a 10-year-old road bike that's basically just needs maybe a set of tires and a tune-up, and and it can be put some fresh tape on there, some tires, a tune-up, and that thing will ride like new. Mountain bikes on the other hand, they get pretty beat up. It's like
yeah, they do.
I always tell people be very careful on the used mountain bike market, because you have a
check that frame very close up with some bright light. You're gonna find some cracks.
Full suspension bikes, man. I've seen people get burned on full suspension bikes. Where they bought something. Those things get power washed and they look great in the pictures, and then you get them up close or you put them in the stand and it's like, whoa.
Corrosion.
Yeah. It's just they blew the grease out of the bearings,
years ago.
Yeah.
They've been grinding on that a long time.
Yeah. So but road bikes, road bikes hold up all right. So my road bike's 12, 15, almost 15 years old, and it's fine. I could ride that thing another 15 years if I wanted to.
I love your bike.
Yeah, I just gotta baby that thing. As long as I take care of it and do some basic maintenance. That's the nice thing about road bikes. So I think
beautiful bike.
Yeah, so I think that those people holding those bikes that are usually on the used market is just because they haven't been able to put together the bike that they want, because that's been really hard to do, to like buy a frame and build a bike and kind of like what I would want to do with the bike. It's been really difficult. And if you're a seasoned bike guy, well, you'll wait, you'll just, until I can build the thing that I want, I'm not going to compromise. And I want to build, I want to build that bike with the parts that I want. And if not, then I'll just continue to ride what I got. So.
In hindsight, you're absolutely right. In hindsight, I would have kept that bike that I sold at Van Dessel, and I would have ridden it the past 2 years. But I was happy, at the same time, someone really needed a bike. They got it. I had a bike or two at the time, and then I didn't. But I have a bike now, so I'm very happy. Mm-hmm. And I'm very lucky to have it, and I'm enjoying it. I really am. I'm getting some rides, and
it looks like you've been riding. I saw your Instagram, and it looks like you were catching the fall colors out there, riding a little bit of. I don't know where you were riding, but I'm sure you'll tell us.
Well, Joe, I don't want to tell you, but I have the secret, track that I ride. No, it's so the North Branch Trail, mm-hmm. as I know you're familiar with. So I jump. I'm here in Logan Square, jump up on Elston. I take that up to Forest Glen, the little park trailhead around there. And then, you take that path. It's a nice wide paved path. And, it's like a lot of city, near city kind of paths. It's cyclists, but then runners and walkers and the whole shebang. But what's cool, and I kind of have known about this, and I've dabbled, Joe, over the years. But alongside, not perfectly all the time, but alongside there is kind of a little bit of a gravel trail. And it's not perfectly consistent with the paved path, but largely you can ride for at least some sections this parallel path that is like a hard pack, crushed limestone, gravel, what have you, that sort of thing. But as you saw in like a couple of pictures I posted, like it's very leafy. Mm-hmm. There's almost no one on it. And it's just become kind of my go-to. It's really fun. You can kind of open up and kind of go at a good clip. And, it's a little technical in the sense that, you might hit some turns at speed. So you're kind of like, put a foot down and that sort of thing. But it's super, super fun. And that's been my jam lately. And, of course, now it's the perfect time of year, right? So it's fall mm-hmm. foliage and all that good stuff. So, yeah, it's been my jam. And like I said, anyway, I'm just really lucky to have a bike and I'm enjoying it. And I think we're still in that pandemic. We're still in that. I know it's kind of waning and all that, and that's a good thing, but we're still in that. We're still shaking out, I feel like, a little bit, especially with supply chain stuff. And like I said, with the bikes, I'm always kind of looking, because I think I'm just one of those people, and I'll do it to my last breath. Like I'm always lurking a little bit. Like I just, a little bit of FOMO, like, I wonder if there's a cool bike for sale, like a vintage Cannondale.
Uh-huh.
I want to score that. I want to score that thing. It just needs like some new cables and tires, and I'm just kind of doing that. I don't do it like every day, but I kind of have that sense about me. And I'm just always kind of looking. And right now, I'm kind of in the mood, for I don't know, something I can kind of just kind of beat up a little bit in the winter because I have this kind of nice carbon fiber road bike and I don't want to trash it too much. So just kind of like eyeing a little bit of a secondhand kind of steel bike or like an aluminum bike, just something I can throw like big fat, tires on and some knobbies, some fenders, and just something I can go ride and just get a little bit gnarly on, and like a little bit of those trails like I described a minute ago, that sort of thing. But I want to pick up something, I'm kind of like my mom. I love the bargains, I love the flea markets. I love the estate sales, the garage sales.
Yeah.
I like finding those little deals. And anyway, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I've been enjoying it. Have you, by the way, been able to ride a little bit? You've been out, or you just been hanging out on the trainer, or what's been your jam? Or you just been chilling?
No, I'm going to, I've been doing a lot of just stuff around the house. I had a big garden going and cleaning that thing up. You'd be surprised how much time it takes to just prune and cut and
taking care of that honeydew list, Joe.
Yeah, trying to make it look like I've been paying attention to the garden, while she was gone.
Deposit in that love bank.
Yeah. And, I actually had some fun. I mean, it's been.
You're blushing, Joe.
Oh man, I've been. Like for the last month, I've been eating out of the garden. I like, tomatoes and cucumbers and basil and just
delicious.
Trying to, yeah. And actually I've got butternuts. I've got a few squashes that have come in. So I'm looking forward to
season,
that.
Man. Look at you, all farm to table or backyard to table.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's become a little quite the hobby lately. I've always had like a tomato plant or two, but
you make a good caprese salad, Jed?
I do.
I love it's my favorite.
Is it? Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I'm and as much as I love tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff, I'm starting to get a little cucumbered and tomato and basiled out.
Yeah.
It's just because I've been force feeding myself a little bit of that just because I don't want it to go to waste.
You don't want to waste it.
So every day.
Is there like somewhere locally you can donate it or sell it, or other farmers markets?
I've been giving some to the kids at the shop, so they gladly take it.
Nice.
And I have a lot of garlic. Nice. I grow garlic, and maybe next time I see you, Danny, I'll give you some. Garlic
yeah, well, we got some from you before.
Yeah.
And it was great. I loved it. And because buying garlic always feels funny. It's like, I know it's like ubiquitous, you can grow it, but no, it was really good. And I always want to use more. I love garlic. I'm a garlic freak. I can basically I can't really have too much garlic. I put it down to my Irish childhood where our strongest spice was pepper. And so I'm kind of making up for it. So
there you go.
I could put garlic on everything.
Going back to the bike thing though, I'm actually kind of excited about the indoor season, Danny. I'm becoming one of those dudes where my indoor cycling, like that routine, where it's a little chilly out
this
there.
Is a thing, man. You're an indoor guy. I never thought, you're an indoor guy.
Because the bike season for me is a little busy and I'm a little stressed out. Especially this year, I just haven't had a lot of time to ride, and I did have to just pick a lane this year and really just keep the shop going this year and do what I can. And riding had to take a little bit of a backseat, more of a backseat than I thought it was going to take. And but now that things are starting to slow down, and I actually have a little time, and I got that cool trainer, and I'm looking forward to Zwifting and checking out all the new routes and see what's going on there. That should be fun. The last couple of years, I've been in better shape in April than I have been in August, just because of all the winter riding. The consistency on the trainer. So
good for you, man. That sounds great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it as well. It sounds like you're having fun with it, and I mean, the main thing is you just pedal, right? It doesn't really kind of matter at some level, like where you pedal, as long as you're pedaling. So
yeah.
And indoor is clearly a part of most people's lives now. I do it, to some degree. It sounds like you're doing it even more.
Yeah, I want to explore that. I want to explore that a little. I mean, the last couple of years has been more of a, I haven't really taken full advantage of it. I mean, I certainly ride it and stuff, but none of those training plans, and not really doing a lot of the organized races or rides that they do on Zwift. But this year, I mean, I think maybe I'll I'll dip my toes into that world a little bit more. Some of those kind of regular kind of training rides that they have, some of these organized rides that they do, and see what all that stuff is about.
I think, you should explore and report back to me, because I'd like to hear about I've seen them advertise. I'm sure we've all seen them on our social feeds. Like Matthew Vanderpool is going to lead a group ride. You know, it's like, oh, okay, all right, let's do 4,000 watts for 4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's a world, right?
Really fun, man.
It's become this like subculture of cycling now, and there are people that do it, and there's people that don't, and it does coincide. It works well with my schedule and with my yearly schedule and just like what I have going on currently. And we'll see. I'll report back. And
please,
I'm going to change my profile to Bike Shop Society on Zwift. So if
you can do the custom kits, right?
Like that's part of all of that is part of what I want to look into.
The avatar, you can do the custom kit. I've seen people do it.
Really?
You might have to pay a little bit. Yeah.
I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it.
No, go do it.
Do that.
And then let me know, and then I'll throw one on too.
Is this a thing?
We could do some rides together.
Are we actually going to do a Bike Shop Society Zwift? Wow, I'll look into it.
Why not?
Yeah,
let's do it. Why
there
not?
You go.
It's not that hard to set up, and once it's set up, it's like good. Then you just like check in, like let's do an hour, and you can hammer a little bit and chill out and
tweet us
whatever.
Tweet us or Instagram us or send us a mail at bikeshopsociety.com if anybody's listening out there and anybody out there Zwifts. I'd be curious to know who's out there like doing that stuff, because there are a lot of people. There's thousands of people, and when I log in there,
there are a lot of people. There are tons of people on it. On that, there's Rovi, there's a handful of Trainer Road, there's a bunch of different ones, but I think in the US Zwift, I don't have the data on hand, but I think Zwift is by and large the most popular virtual cycling platform. So no, it's really cool. I've definitely used it over the years. I've had accounts. I've let them lapse. They're popular. They do lots of cool stuff. They're always having promos. I like it. I haven't used it a lot lately, but I definitely see, I think my personality is just a little bit different. I do see tons of great benefits for it. And I think it comes down to personality and what you like. I like, it's weird, Joe. I think I talked about this before, but when I do my workouts indoors, I will put on like the most recent cyclocross race from Europe. And usually it's on YouTube or somewhere like that. And it's usually 60 minutes for the men, and I'll just put it on and I just hammer out. I'll try to maybe do some structured intervals, but sometimes I just cruise, tempo, what have you. Work up a sweat, spin on the rollers. But sometimes I'll throw in an old classic. Yeah. Like an old Roubaix or Liège or what have you. And I'm just in my head, I'm just like riding along with these superstars and I'm like just cruising along. So I kind of do some of that old school stuff. I think it's good to have a mix. Like whatever works for you is what you should be doing. Some people like to listen to audiobooks. Some people watch Netflix. Some people just do whatever.
I'll split the screen oftentimes, or sometimes I even hide the Zwift altogether. So I'll be riding Zwift or a certain course or whatever course on Zwift, but my screen will be a Netflix or a YouTube video or something, so I'm not necessarily, I'm keeping track of the ride on Zwift, but I'm, my attention is somewhere else, it's not I'm not in the virtual world.
Your soap operas and stuff.
Yeah. I love all of my children, all that stuff, General Hospital. Are those on? Are those still on?
The classic. I don't know, but I know my sisters grew up watching that, and so that meant I did too. Because their idea of babysitting me was watching General Hospital.
Those were big back
Laura
in the day.
and Luke. Was it Laura?
Luke and Laura.
Luke and Laura.
Oh yeah.
By the way, Joe, before I forget, that podcast I referred to with Gary Fisher, it's the Richards This is the name of the podcast, Richards Mountain Bike Show.
Okay.
I believe he's a gent from the UK. and the podcast is called Chatting with Gary Fisher, the father of mountain biking. So if people want to check that out, I listened to roughly half of it, and it was really cool. Like I've met Gary a couple times.
Interesting cat, right?
Magazine.
He's very, very interesting cat.
And cat is the right word.
Yeah.
He's from that old school.
Yeah.
He would say, "Hey, what's up, cat?"
Yeah.
He the first time I ever met him, Joe, he came to Bicycling Magazine.
Okay, what was he wearing?
And he, I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
He was wearing a full blue leather suit.
Wow.
It was so dope. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's how he just dressed. And he had this, it wasn't a fedora, but it was like this leather hat, and he had this tie on, and he came up and he had, he's got that goatee. And he's very lanky, you know, he just kind of strolled up and he's like, hey, did that little jazz thing, like, hey guys. And
he might even be taller than you.
He's just like I thought he would be.
Oh, yeah.
He's so cool.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude. I used to run into him at Interbike a lot. And
yeah.
He used to stay at the same hotel that I would stay at. So I like year after year, I'd, be in the lobby, and he was always down to chat and take pictures and stuff like that. He's always just
he's
very
so
nice.
Chill. He's so chill.
But he
doesn't have any of that bullshit like I'm this or I'm that. There's so many people in his position who would be so douchey and smug.
Yeah.
But he literally was one of the founders of mountain biking.
Super friendly.
Like,
but his
so cool.
His get-ups though were maybe a little intimidating for people, because you'd see him and he looked like he was from like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory or something. They were out there. It looked like he was getting ready to go on stage with the band. This is random, but he reminded me of like the Tom and Jerry cartoons when like Tom would dress up. Oh yeah, like the fancy
with like the long cigarette, like that. He just reminded me of that kind of character.
Yeah.
Almost like a caricature. I mean that no discredit. Like it's a huge plus, but he's got great style. He's a style maven.
Yeah.
He could be like he can be in GQ. He should be in GQ. But that podcast he did, and I know he's done a million, but it was really cool. He kind of just gave like a really straight update to the gent who hosts the show, and I think it's cool if people want to check it out. Then I separately also met him pretty recently at I didn't go this year, which it just happened this past weekend, but the Trek cyclocross World Cup weekend. I went the past like 2-3 years, not this year, but I met him there, and you know what? He's just hanging out, talking to people walking up to him, and I went up, shook his hand. A little selfie. We both had fedoras on that day, which is for fun. It was like a really hot weekend. What a cool guy. And he has a book too. He has a book that is relatively new. Came out, I think, in the past couple of years, maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, I think people should check it out if they're really interested. And he's just he's got good vibes.
I was thinking about, I was working in my storage room, which, I guess I'll talk about it a little bit. We're going to redo, it's part of my remodeling. It's a room that I use for storage that I think I'm going to convert into kind of a workspace, into a repair shop, dedicated repair. Because when we started our shop, our current shop right now is repair and sales all in one place, and we outgrew that a long time ago. But throughout the pandemic, we needed this storage space, and we haven't been able to do anything. And I think this will be the winter when we get to remodel that and kind of make a real dedicated repair shop. Strictly repairs in that space, and store all the repair bikes and kind of separate retail from repair.
Nice, man.
But I was, kind of moving bikes around, and I have some old Treks in there, and saw my Bontrager there, and it dawned on me. I was like, I was around in the bike business when there were different companies. When like these cats were making bikes, when Gary Fisher was making bikes, and Keith Bontrager had a place in California, and he was making bikes, and Gary Klein was making his bikes. And, I kind of, watched these guys get bought out by Trek, how the Trek just absorbed all these different brands, and, where they didn't have any any bona fides in the mountain biking world, but they went out and they bought the biggest, baddest mofos in the business, the guys who invented it, and got them to, they got street cred by buying out the biggest guys, bringing those guys in house, and eventually just, submarining their brands, because at some point there was, the Gary Fisher, Fisher bikes were still around, and Bontrager bikes were still around, and so were Klein's for a little bit under the Trek brand, but little by little they just started getting rid of all of those names and just kind of turning it into the Trek brand. But
if you can't beat them, buy them.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they did. I mean, like Keith Bontrager was a prolific dude, that guy was designing tires for WTB and for a lot of different people before he was bought by. He had a ton of like patents, I believe. That was one of the reasons he was kind of targeted by Trek, because a lot of his stuff was pretty innovative. His design was innovative. He was handlebars and saddles and bike frames, tires, and
which is why a lot of companies merge or buy other companies too, for their patents.
Yeah, I mean SRAM did the same. SRAM did the same thing.
I was gonna say I think SRAM did it. I'm sure they all do for sure.
Yeah, but I mean,
at least Bontrager, the name still lives on. They make good stuff. They got the wheels and all the products. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's been a lot of that. I mean, just that big consolidation, right? Big Bike. We've talked about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, just for people out there who don't know that, I mean, these guys were, that's kind of where they're at now. If you're wondering where the Klein bikes are at, or what happened to Gary Fisher bikes, and those were, these guys were, and I'm always curious to like talk to those guys to see how things worked out for them. I mean, I'm sure they were happy to get bought out. I'm sure they got a big check, and if talking to bike builders and knowing some of those guys, it's always it's hard for those guys, no matter how big they are. Like look at Ben Sirota. I mean, like that's a guy you'd think there's no way that a guy like that, would ever go down, and and he couldn't make it in the bike business. So those frame builders, they're artists more than these big huge companies. So
yeah, well, that's the thing. You talk about distribution, you talk about marketing, advertising, the business side of it. The bike, building a great bike is like one sliver of it, right? And so there's this whole like reality of going to the world stage and getting your stuff out there. Ben Sirota is like a super good example. And we could probably sit here and brainstorm like dozens of others. It's tough. But I know last time we talked about getting Mike Sinyard on, which I think we should do. We should also get Gary Fisher on eventually. I want to talk to him. I think he would come on.
I'd love to talk to some of these cats, man. They're, those guys are the ones that, they made all this stuff happen, and
I'm marking it on my little notebook here, my little, I have my little moleskin here, and I'm going to write it down and list.
Oh, wow. You really are writing. Listeners, I'm watching him write stuff down in a moleskin book. It's like real official. It's a real legit moleskin too.
It is. And so I'm going to get, Gary Fisher, GF, and Mike Sinyard, MS.
Wow.
These are future guests of the show. So if you're listening now and you're like, oh, this podcast kind of sucks, just know, dear listener, we're going to have some heavy hitters on here, as we've had in the past on this podcast.
I think our listeners are pretty, from what I can tell, they're dedicated. Not a million of them, but the ones that are listening, they listen all.
Tens?
Yeah, tens. All tens of them. They listen.
Joe, are you?
They listen regularly, and they're scattered throughout the world. Here and there, we've got guys. We have people.
Let's lift the hood up, Joe, for the folks. Now, are you able to see with your analytics, your air traffic control, which I believe is more sophisticated than O'Hare's? Are you able to see who's a repeat listener? by the analytics, or are you kind of guesstimating a little bit?
No, you know what? I don't get I don't get names, but I do get towns, and I get towns, I get countries, and so I'm guessing that the guy who is in let me pick one, because there's some the guy who's in County Cork.
Oh yeah,
yeah. There's a guy in County Cork, man. Do you have a cousin or something in County Cork, Danny?
Well, Joe, this is really funny.
Okay.
So this is no blarney. First thing, I have a cousin.
Okay.
Who lives in Cork. He lives in Cork City, and his name is Daniel McMahon. That's my name.
No way.
He's my same name. So my cousin Susan lives here in Chicago.
Okay.
So she's from Cary. So her brother is Daniel, and he lives in Cork. So he's there. But I will say very quickly too, he's probably not the listener, because I know him, and he's probably like, oh, thanks, not for me. I have a hunch though. I wonder if it's him. So I follow this guy, and he follows me. I think his name is Jeff Spillane. Anyway, Jeff, if it's you, because I've tweeted our little podcast a couple of times.
Okay.
Let me just double check. If it is you, Jeff, fair play to you. Thanks for listening. I don't have his name handy. Let me see. Give me 1 second. It could be him, Joe. It could be someone else, of course. Who the hell knows? Mike Spillane. Mike Spillane. Sorry, if I'm saying it right.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in Cork, I believe. And if it is you, why don't you drop us a line? It could be someone else. Who knows? There are a lot of people in Cork, and whoever it is.
There's also somebody in Los Angeles, Danny, who's like who's like one of our, he downloads pretty quickly. I can,
Is it Brad Pitt?
I don't know. It could be Sandra Bullock. Could be Brad Pitt. It could be, who knows?
Do you remember? Did you ever see Burn After Reading?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You remember he's got the. He's trying to do the deal, and he has that famous line where he's riding his bike, and the other guy calls it a Schwinn, and Brad Pitt freaks out. He's like, "You thought it was a Schwinn." It's a famous line. Who knows, Joe? Could be Larry David. They're all LA folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you don't know.
You'd never know who's listening to this thing. I know somebody who is listening, and I have a name. His name is Corey.
Oh.
And that's Corey at the Center for Bike Repair. That's our friend in Seattle.
Oh, I think we follow each other on Twitter now.
Cycle Gator. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to you, Cycle Gator. Thank you for all you do and listening. I think it's super cool, and I think he's the one who wrote in previously, right?
Yeah, and he wrote in again with a much more detailed note. Just sending some shout outs and talking a little bit about. Should we read his email? You want to want me to read it?
Oh, please do. I'll just give his little quick bio, Joe, as you're pulling that up.
Uh-huh.
We follow each other on Twitter now. He gave a shout out to the show previously, and he is a public defense investigator, censor for bicycle repair, criminologist, and there's a question mark after that. So if you want to follow him on Twitter, he's in Seattle, and his website is apparently Censor for Bicycle Repair.
Mm-hmm.
And he's engaged with us a few times. He seems to be a bike lover and interested in bike safety and things of that nature. And shout out to you, sir, for reaching out. We love to hear from folks, Joe.
Yeah, his letter starts out, "Hi, Joe and Danny. This is Corey from Seattle. I run the Center for Bicycle Repair here. On Twitter, I'm Cycle Gator. The Gator comes from my job at the Public Defender's Office in Seattle, where I'm a criminal investigator."
Whoa.
Gator. The shop's
now his bio makes more sense.
Yeah. The shop's Instagram handle is Center for Bike Repair. So he says a lot of stuff. I don't want to go too deep into it because I think some of that is just kind of, for you and for me.
Sure.
He does mention that he's a big fan of KEXP that we mentioned. He's he donates to KEXP. He listens to KEXP, so he was and that he has it playing in the shop as well. So that was that's kind of cool that that we're on that. I could work there probably. I could work at the Center for Bike Repair.
You would fit right in. You'd be walking in like, I feel like I'm at home.
At home, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think what they do, they're not a traditional bike shop. They're more of like, they do like one-on-one classes, like little group classes, like 5 people at a time. They come in, they solve their own problems, work on their bikes, do like a 3-hour class.
That's wow, that's really cool. Actually,
yeah, it's cool. It's like
a personalized workshop almost.
Yeah, and then you kind of pay what you can. It's like one of those things. And we should have him on to talk. He's got a big event. He's got a thing going on this Sunday, and I saw on some of his social media that he has a class this weekend. So if you're in Seattle, check in at the Center for Bike Repair. They might still have a spot or two. And I'm going to send a note out to him, and maybe we can catch up with him next week and see how that went, and see what else is going on. He seems like a cool dude. He's been, we've been back and forth. I didn't answer this email, so I'm, doing it here because I'm better with the spoken word than the written word.
I hear you, man. No, that's cool. I just love engaging with any real person.
Yeah,
So we're not here in our dungeon.
No, there's
like
some
real person.
There's some people.
It's really
out there.
kind of fun though, right? Like get someone like interested and engaged.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to shout out, just drop us a line. You can insult us. You can write us a poem, a dirty limerick, whatever your jam is, man. Just don't catfish us. Don't send us any crazy links. But no, reach out, say hi. What's going on in your mind? Are you riding?
Yeah, don't be afraid.
What are you feeling about this whole season, pandemic, bike stuff?
Whatever, man. What are you listening to these days?
Because
music is a big part of our lives, right? I mean,
it's a huge part.
Right? It's a huge part. It's like, hey, what are you listening to these days? I have had an endless dose of idols this week.
Whoa.
I have just been like getting down with Idols. Are you familiar with Idols?
Idols is a band?
Yeah.
I thought you meant like just idols in general, like Billy Idol.
No.
The great idols of the world. So idols, how do you spell it? IDLES. Idols, as in you're idling your car.
Yeah.
Idols. Rock band. Joe, this is a new band for me. I'm excited.
You got to check these guys out, Dan. I thought you were. I thought you'd know these guys.
No, man.
They seem right up your alley.
I just pulled them up on Spotify, and their main image is a dude who's like surfing, crowd surfing, but he's like in a dress. This looks awesome. They've got almost a million monthly listeners. Yeah. Never Fight a Man with a Perm. That's their first song recommended. This is great.
Yeah, they got a great NPR, like tiny disc. And can you hear them? Are you hearing this?
Yeah. Oh, nice bass. I like that.
Oh, it's just, it's just something that's been kind of there in the background for me. Like I've heard some of their songs, but
now
creatine and a bag of Charlie shit.
I don't know. It just reminds me of like early bike shop days.
It's got like, for me, it's got like a post-punk vibe. Just like very gritty guitar, and I love it. It sounds really good. By the way, Joe, did you hear about these guys through that station that you listened to out of Seattle that you referenced?
Yeah, they definitely play some idols, and it's been, I guess it's that time of the year where I can actually go like look for some music versus it having it on in the background and like things where maybe I've heard it regularly in the background of the shop, but not enough where I can, like really pay attention and sink my teeth into it. You know how,
right.
where like certain things kind of start sticking out after a while where you're just
Yeah.
You know, I got to go visit that band. I got to go deeper, right? I got to go, you know, versus just that song that I keep hearing of theirs. I want to see if there's more there. You know, is there more to like from them? And yeah, I really just, you know, they just kind of remind me of, I don't know, I like their, I like their whole thing. They're just crazy. I think you would enjoy Idols.
I've already followed them. I clicked the follow button on Spotify because I'm a Spotify guy.
Okay.
And I'm going to check them out. I love that sound you just played, that sample. And if we're sharing, Joe,
Yes,
someone I've been listening to a little bit lately, who I saw at Thalia Hall, which is one of Chicago's great music venues, is Kurt Vile.
Yes.
Maybe you know him. Maybe listeners do. And I've only gotten into him in the last 6 months, so I'm a little late, but I'm really digging his stuff. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I just find it pretty cool. He's a little bit all over the place, which I love. So if people are interested, check out Kurt Vile.
Yeah, he's got a tiny desk as well. You know, it seems like all the cool people are on there. You know, he's another one that gets a lot of play on KEXP. So, you know,
cool.
Yep.
He's cool. He's like, I don't even, again, I won't even attempt to describe him, but I think he's got a cool sound and he goes a little bit all over the place and really fun.
Nice.
Joe, I was going to do a very quick news roundup.
All right.
There have been a few interesting news items, and I thought we would just bring our listeners up to speed in case they missed.
I was on the beach, but I was
there you go.
Thinking about the bay. Got to the bay, but by then I was far away. I was on the ground.
Maybe he rides a bike. Maybe he's a listener. If Kurt Vile or Idols, either one of you are listening out there, or you have a friend who are, you know, you're friends with them, have them get in touch with the show. We'd be happy to talk to them. You know, love to, you know, if we can connect those dots, that would be awesome, Danny.
Come on the show.
Yeah, come on the show. Why not?
Kurt Vile has some serious hair, so I wonder, riding a bike, he might have visibility problems. But no, he's fantastic. So, Joe, the first item here in our news roundup, I don't know if you heard this, Jumbo Visma to race on SRAM in 2023.
Really?
That is,
they're switching from Shimano, right?
The biggest team ever. I think they were in Shimano. The biggest team ever to ride SRAM.
Movistar's on SRAM this year.
Yeah,
right?
but in terms of like,
bigger.
I know there have been World Tour teams, including. But I'm saying, like, if you had to pick the biggest.
Oh, that's the biggest team. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, like, of all time, like, everything is relative, right? Like, you adjust for inflation and stuff like that. That kind of video. But I'm thinking of the biggest teams in the sport. And I know SRAM is sponsored, obviously, Trek. There's a famous YouTube clip. Have you seen the YouTube clip with Boko Malama saying "fucking SRAM" because he has a mechanical and they caught it on the hot mic? Have you seen this one?
No.
You should pull it up.
Really?
Yeah, just pull up Mollema. It's the Dutch writer Boko Mollema from I think he was on Trek at the time. This is mean, but it's on there. It's public, so he had a mechanical and he goes, "Fucking SRAM." Fucking SRAM. It's a very famous video. Everyone has seen
hold
it.
On, let me play
a lot of people.
Let me play this now.
Damage limitation now for Mathieu van der Poel and Dan Hall.
Stop. All right.
Malcolm Mollema with a mechanical issue.
Fucking SRAM. All right, we need to make t-shirts.
Yeah. You know who I saw at SRAM today? Our friend Christian Vanderbilt.
Damage limitation now for Mathieu.
He was visiting
Wait a second. Let me slow down here. Let me unpack that. Were you at SRAM today?
No, I wasn't there, but I follow our friend Christian.
Oh, so he was at SRAM. So Christian was there?
Yeah, he's in town. He must be in town because he did a picture of the John Hancock building, and then he was over at SRAM.
Is he going to come on the pod or what?
I don't know. His mom lives really close to if his mom's still living at their old place, if they still have that house, they're very close to the bike shop. He's probably in the neighborhood. So,
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, shout out. I thought you were at SRAM for a second because I know you sneak around Chicago, Joe.
yeah, a little bit.
So, I don't know. Let's see. Is that official or is that just people familiar with the matter? A report, : So reports in Dutch media indicate that the Tour de France winners will change suppliers for next season. Well, that would be a huge win for SRAM. I mean, again, they've obviously had World Tour teams before.
Yeah.
But I would argue that if you look historically, this is, relatively speaking, the biggest team. I know that, as you said correctly, they've been with Movistar and some others, Trek, obviously, and some others. But anyways, I hope you like that Moloma clip.
Yeah, I wonder how these days. Like, I wonder how effective some of those sponsorships are for some of these companies. I know in Europe, there's it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different market. But I don't know, man.
I think it's big, man. I think it's big. If I see if I see Jumbo is sponsored by SRAM, it might tilt me in a certain direction. I know I'm just a scrub. I'm not like, I'm just a scrub. But Joe, if I see it, if you're asking me personally, for me, it makes something. Will it make me absolutely buy SRAM? No, but it definitely will clout things. It'll cloud things a little bit. It might have some clout.
See,
if I, because if I'm like, oh, I got some money, I can buy SRAM, let's say Force, because I'm not going to buy Red. It's too much, but maybe I can like scrimp and save, and now I can go up to Force from Rival. I might go up from 105 to Ultegra. I love Shimano. I love SRAM too. I might be swayed to go SRAM if I see Jumbo. If I see Wout Van Aert is riding SRAM, I don't know. That's just my quick and easy answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wonder, like, because I don't sense a lot of, from the average person coming into the bike shop. Now, this is America, right? In America. In Europe, it's definitely it's a different ball game, and maybe even other parts of the world. But I don't have people coming in that are brand specific with like the parts, like requesting a SRAM Grupo versus a Shimano Grupo. They tend to be more price point, and it could just be, and it could be my shop. That performance side, those performance shops, certainly people are coming in, but even there, it tends to be the shop that favors one brand over the other. This shop is particular to Campy on high-end bikes. This shop is particular to Shimano. This is a SRAM shop. In Chicago, you get a lot of SRAM shops, a lot, because they're a hometown company. So, that's just kind of my experience at bike shops here in the States, is that that shop is a Shimano shop. It's not that we poo-poo SRAM or poo-poo Campy, but we, given the option, like our default build would be, let's say, a Shimano build. But I've worked with other people in other shops, and where they loved SRAM. They just loved SRAM, and they drank the Kool-Aid with it. So I mean, they really, really, just championed it. So
I feel like now you absolutely have to be able to work and install everything. But I do agree that historically there was this penchant, this idea that, you would remember the Campy, there would be like that classic, beautiful, whoever designed the Campy logo's a genius. Remember the little quick release, the little feather, whatever it is. So beautiful. It's one of my favorite designs of all time. But, there always be one of those in the little shop, it's like Campy. It's like, and it had this like cachet. You're like, oh, it's a Campy store.
Yeah.
So cool. SRAM, absolutely. Shimano obviously is ubiquitous. I don't know. My take is they're all really good. I know everyone's got their, preferences. I do like that SRAM has that F1 vibe, which is like the paddles, so right is harder, left is easier. So there's always that logic, shifting logic. But whatever. I still love Shimano. I mean, my favorite group set of all time is Dura-Ace. I'm not going to lie. Dura-Ace mechanical, but anyway,
they're both so high. Those groups are so high end.
I mean, if you have either one, like you're set.
Yeah,
like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to go wrong. I kind of, it's like a Android phone versus Apple. Part of it is just like what you grew up with and what you're comfortable with, because now they're so different in terms of like how they work, and they're, just kind of what you're used to at this point. That if you grew up in a certain system, it would
for me, honestly, it's kind of like Ferrari, Porsche, like. Mm-hmm. Whatever analogy you want to throw in, it's kind of like they're both awesome. I don't know. I'm a Porsche guy, but so Joe, Jumbo-Visma rumored, not confirmed, rumored in the Dutch media. It's funny, the Dutch media always has the scoop on these things, which makes sense. Or I'm sorry, is it Belgian media? I correct myself.
You know who might know? You know who might know is Kate Wagner.
Chris. Oh, well, Kate Wagner. On the tech side, she might. I mean, she probably could ask. She just had actually, I'm glad you mentioned her. Mm-hmm. Kate's amazing. She has a new feature, I think, on Cycling Tips about Tadej Pogacar. A big, I think, interview, big feature. Folks should check it out. I started to read it, and I had a crazy week, so I'm going to go back and read it this weekend.
Yeah, she just got back from there, right? I mean,
word
she was
for
just
word.
there.
I think so. Mm-hmm. So that's been that news. And other news, Joe, I thought it was interesting. Tom Bonin, who we mentioned earlier, one of my favorite riders.
Is he coming out of retirement?
Classics hard man. No, but he did throw a little bit of shade on Wout van Aert. Speaking of Jumbo-Visma, he said, pretty good season in 22 there, Wout, but you know what? You missed the monument, and that's all that matters.
There you go.
He is reported on Velo News. The former pro says that Remco Evenepoel is no longer riding in the shadow of Van Aert after his Super 22 season. And the lead says Wout van Aert looks set to end the 2022 season as the second-ranked rider in the men's peloton, but Belgian former pro Tom Bonin believes his compatriot could have done more by winning a monument. So there is that, Joe. Other quick news. We had the news out of the UK. So British Cycling, which is, the governing body, they run all the Olympic teams, and all the greats have come through there, including Brad Wiggins and Chris Hoy and Mark Cavendish, et cetera, et cetera. They're facing some backlash because they are partnering with Shell. And so environmental groups are accusing the Federation of greenwashing, and people are outraged, and members are threatening to leave the body. So there's a lot of that going on, and there's a rumor, Joe. Anthony McCrossan, who you probably know, if you don't know by name, you might know his voice. He tweeted early this morning. I was up early, and I saw his tweet, and I made a very slight reply to it. He tweeted that Mark Cavendish was going to a new team, and by way of that, it looked almost certain that he would probably do the Tour de France next year, and hopefully get that 35th stage win. However, he was quickly corrected by internet folks, and it sounds like it's not official. So let me just pull it up. Let me see my buddy here. Here he is, Anthony McCrossan, who's a great. I like him. We follow each other on Twitter. He does great commentary. You'll know the voice if you haven't. If you don't know the name. I think the tweet is deleted, if you will. But basically, he kind of reported that it was kind of a done deal. Oh, it looks like here's an update. Apologies. Mark Cavendish, there was a fake account. I should have checked it, yada, yada, yada. So there is a fake account out there, folks, for Mark Cavendish. So it's not actually official. But he had reported basically that Mark was going to this new team, and he would almost, for sure get into the Tour with this new team. But that is not official. Although someone interesting who's a pretty prominent German journalist, I will not name them, they actually got into the thread there, and they were saying, well, this isn't official yet, which makes me think, well, it's sounding maybe likely. So bottom line is here, Mark Cavendish, I know he has a lot of fans, and probably people were disappointed he didn't get to the tour this year and win that 35th stage to break Eddie Merckx's record. But I'm hopeful that happens. We'll see what happens. And the final bit of news here, Joe. Oh, my Siri is going off on my phone. I must have said something weird. The final bit of news, Joe, is we had two things. Lombardia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw the highlights. I only caught the highlights. I wasn't interested in watching the whole race because I was watching the gravel world championships. But
wow, you chose the gravel over the.
I did.
Yeah,
I did. I posted a little screenshot because I was torn. I was watching GCN Racing, which I have a subscription to, which everyone should subscribe to. I love them. I'm not sponsored or endorsed by them, but I had both races side by side, and on my TV. So I was doing the double screen. The gravel world championships were happening for the men on that Sunday, and I'm sorry, was it? It was for the men, and then Lombardia. So Pogacar defended his title, so he's now won 2 Lombardias in a row, and he's the only rider to have ever done that in history in terms of racing his first and second ever. So he made history
over Enric Mas, right? He beat Enric Mas and. Was it Enric Mas? Yeah, right.
In a wave, yeah. And what's his name got third? Was it Landa? In a way, my favorite ride of the day was Mas. I mean, Pogacar won, but for Mas to do second, I don't know. He had a good season because he had some big trouble. If anybody watched the Movistar Netflix series, they'll know there's a lot of stuff, a lot of drama over there on the Spanish team, de facto Spanish team, Movistar. So kudos to Mas. I've always liked Mas. He always seems like he has great outsized potential, and he's had like disruptions and he's had like focus issues and I don't know things. But this year things really seem to click. Like he was really high in the Grand Tours, and to get to the line with Pogacar and like the final classic, I don't know. He had a pretty good season. I'm actually very hopeful that he can win a Grand Tour. He's still relatively young, so I think he could do it. But yeah, then we had the Gravel World Championships. And Gianni Vermeersch, he won the first ever World Championships of gravel.
Johnny Vermeersch?
Yeah, Gianni Vermeersch. He's I know him from cyclocross.
Okay.
He's a teammate. He's a teammate on the trade team of Van der Poel.
Okay.
But super great, rider, Belgian, and he's been around. He's no new name to anyone who follows the sport, but he's not like a big name, obviously. So
fun race to watch.
Really cool.
Was it entertaining racing?
It was. Full disclosure, I only watched the last bit, but I thought it was a really good race. And Van der Poel was third. That tells me it was a hard race. It was good, man. And I thought it was just cool to. It was really bizarre to have like a new major world championship race. I saw some folks kind of being a little negative on Twitter, like, oh, it's just a glorified road race with a couple token like gravel sections. And I didn't watch it closely enough to be informed enough to kind of reply to that. I did see folks who were applauding it and saying, hey, this is great. We have a new kind of race. I think Daniel Loss, I don't know if you saw Sagan's teammate on the road for trade teams. He got second, which was really cool. So I love that kind of weird podium, right? It's like Gianni Vermeersch, Daniel Austin, like Matthew Van der Poel third. Like, I don't think I could have picked that podium in a million years. So that to me is like kind of cool. Like that speaks to, I don't know, the quality and the interesting aspect of gravel.
Yeah. I think, and especially like I would imagine that we're not that far off from seeing that more and more of that stuff getting incorporated into big races, especially like just the infrastructure now, just like all the road furniture and some of these roads now make the racing so dangerous and like, just not. I think that some of these races are actually pretty dangerous these days with the way that some of these roads are built when they're shooting through these small towns where having that alternative, being able to like push them through a gravel road that I would probably I anticipate more and more of that stuff getting incorporated into some of the big races that, that we know as traditional road races, like I don't.
Oh yeah.
I wonder how far we are from that, and how much talk there is of that behind the scenes, where, if they're going to be able to make that do that.
Right. Yeah, no. And yeah, no, absolutely. I for me, it was, I just love this. This is more racing. This is cool. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of guys who aren't going to go to Lombardia because there's so much freaking climbing. I don't know if it was 5,000 or 8,000 feet of climbing. Like, it's insane. Maybe it was more.
Yeah,
that's a puncher, climber, all rounder race. Like Van der Poel's obviously he can do anything, but you get my point. There are a lot of people who are going to want to go do this gravel race. Greg Van Avermaet summed it up well. He's like, this was like cool opportunity to do something a little different. I think Daniel Oss was, I think he got second, so clearly he's got a little bias there, but he had a great time. I don't know. It's like, this is cool. Like, why not more racing? I'm all for more world championships. It's certainly an interesting time. And just so we're paying attention here, so Ferran Provo won the women's race. I don't know if you were there, Joe, but I was in Ponferrada in Spain when Mikhail Kwiatkowski won the world championship race back in the day. That was a cool thing. And I wasn't planning to be there for the women's race that Saturday, but we actually got really lucky in terms of our flight landing on time, getting our rental car fast. And we made a beeline to Ponferrada from Madrid. And we got up there within 1 hour to the finish to see the women's road race finish.
Really?
And so I saw Ferran Provo win there, which was super cool. And it's just always a memory I have. So she won the women's gravel race, the first world championship, which was awesome. And so Johnny Vermeesh, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing his name, our world champs of gravel, and it was really cool. And I was really stoked for all this racing.
Good way to kick off the season, end the season, I guess.
Absolutely, and that's my news roundup there, Joe.
That was a lot of news, man. There was a lot of race. Yeah,
it's a lot of news.
I did see a
lot.
For
me, one of the most interesting things is that SRAM is going to sponsor Jumbo.
Yeah, you're very excited. You're very excited about that. But you know what?
Like
that. It's good because I sometimes I'm in my little bubble at the bike shop, so I lose track. I do lose track of that a little bit, and that's why I try to monitor some of that. And I know just from friends in Europe and watching some of those guys how there's still a lot of excitement about the new Grupos coming out, and they're still weighing bikes, and it's just that part is lost on me because I'm not in and around those racers anymore, or like the competition side quite as much. But they're still, those guys are still very excited over there. It's just a different level. It's a whole different thing. The European market is just, it's that's got to be the play for them. In certain places, certain pockets here in the United States for sure. But I that's got to be that. That's what they're doing for, because I think that there's definitely, from what I see from the bike shops there, when the new SRAM comes in, it's still kind of an exotic thing. It's it has some cachet in Europe, whereas here it's not.
No, for sure. I actually feel, I don't know about you, but I actually feel like, and this is super biased, but I feel like, with Shimano, they do like iterations. They do like, slight upgrades. I feel with SRAM, they do like, maybe it's recency bias, but I feel like they do like, when they have upgrades, they're like big, they're like different. It's like the new iPhone like has 5 cameras, just that kind of stuff. That could be way off, but I think it's kind of a coup. I just love I'm just imagining the background drama, like some coup, like some sales team is like trying to get like a connect inside Jumbo Visma, like, hey, we have to get you on SRAM. And, Shimano was like, what? Oh, no, you must stay on Shimano. We had a deal. We thought we were cool. We're best friends. No. So I don't know. I think it's just gonna be fun. I mean, who really cares at the end of the day? I just think it's kind of cool. I'd love to see Wout. And can you imagine like, oh my God, this is bad. What's his name? The guy who won Vingegaard, sorry.
Oh yeah.
He won the Tour. So like, imagine him riding SRAM. I don't know why that feels like a big deal, but who are the last people to win on SRAM? Was it Contador? No, it must have been someone recent. Who's the last person who won the Tour on SRAM? Contador springs to mind, but I'm probably missing someone. Lance. Well, he was on the podium. Sorry, with Contador.
Those guys are all.
No, they're all
campy. Those guys were all campy guys, and
yeah,
I mean, but that
might have been.
And then you had Shimano with the Sky guys or Ineos, right?
Yeah. Let me see TDF winners. Let me pull up the wiki real quick. This is nerding out, but you know,
no, I mean, you know what this is. This is actually.
I don't think it totally cares, but I kind of love it. I love to see, you know, maybe it's the hometown Chicago thing. Like I'm just like, yeah, Chicago's on the podium.
Yeah, the business side of that is kind of interesting to me. You know, like how many kids? What's the money involved? Is it just product and money? You know, there's got to be product and money, I guess, at that level.
Oh yeah, for sure. You got to pay. I'm guessing, like for sure. There's like lots of money.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have SRAM stickers all over the kit, all over the bike, all over their media. Like it's gonna be tons of product and tons of kit. Well, Joe, looks like we have to have someone else on the podcast, someone from SRAM or someone inside to tell us a little bit. I'm just doing a quick glance. This is unofficial, but we have last Tour de France winners: Vingegaard, Pogacar, Bernal, Thomas, Froome, Nibali, Froome, Wiggins, Evans, Schleck, Contador. I'm thinking 2009 Contador, who was on Trek, was on SRAM, and I think that was the last TDF winner on SRAM. So we're over a decade. Oscar Pereiro, and before that we had 7 missing winners. I don't know who that could be. And then we had Pantani, Ulrich, Rees, Underen, Le Mans, Delgado, Roche. The list goes on.
Well, you know, I know somebody there. You know,
you do.
Well, I know you know people too, but the guy
hit up your contact.
The guy who showed me how to work at a bike shop. The guy who broke me in at a bike shop is he was at some point, I know he was the road product manager there. So, like in charge of the road program. I think might be doing aftermarket now, like selling to the bike companies.
Maybe, but I'm sure you know Mike Zellman. We should. I wonder if Mike Zellman had something to do with this.
Well, yeah, he's their guy. He's their marketing guy. Yeah, for sure. He was down.
Maybe we have to get him on the show. I love this little drama. I just imagine in my head it's like a Netflix series. It's like, how do we get Jumbo Visma?
It's not confirmed yet, right? So if it gets confirmed, we'll reach out to someone. We'll talk to someone. Then they'll want to talk probably and talk a little bit about that. But yeah, I mean, we know a lot of guys there. Taco Ed, they're road mechanic guy. Yeah, JP, my friend JP,
the whole crew. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I see a lot of them. I believe there's SRAM employees like on the lakefront path. Like I see them commuting to and from. It's always fun. Like it's pretty clear they're SRAM employees. Like they got the kit or the bike or.
In all the gear,
little indicators.
They're all on zips, and they're all kitted
right. 808s, like shh. But no, it's really funny. Like I love SRAM.
The SRAM employees around town, they do go to bike events and walk around kind of like royalty. Have you noticed that?
Have you noticed shade?
No, I mean they show up and they got their hat and their gear and all that stuff. I mean they also sponsor most of the events in town. So they
do. That's true. Like they're super good about sponsoring. Tricross Cup, the Intelligentsia Cup. They do. I think they do all of that.
Yeah, they sponsored my race, my Soldiers Field series. They were prominent sponsors of that race. So yeah, I mean, but I know those guys, and but when you see them like at the mountain bike race and some of that stuff, they're usually the primary sponsor here in town of most of those rides and races. And so, Going back to that VIP tent treatment, Danny.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get it at the events. Yeah.
VIP in cycling is a funny thing, but as just a footnote, I was cruising the homepage of cyclingtips.com, which I'm a subscriber of. I recommend you do too. They have a lot of good stuff. Kate writes for them. But it looks like confirmed. Well, I shouldn't say confirmed, but their headline suggests it's confirmed. They say Jumbo-Visma will race SRAM Group Set from 2023, end of an era as Dutch squad drops Shimano. So they don't even seem to hedge it in terms of like people familiar with the matter. But separately, they also say in tech sources, UAE Team Emirates set to swap Campagnolo for Shimano, Joe.
Oh, there you go.
There's a lot going on with group sets in the World Tour. Who the hell cares? I do, but I don't know if our listeners do. Anyway, that's just my little wrap up of news for you, Joe.
There you go, Danny. There you go. Well, you're the cycling reporter, so thank you for your report. Thank you for your.
There report. You go. There you go, man.
Yeah, I we'll see how it all shakes out, and that's another reason I'm looking forward to the fall, Danny, is that we have time to chase some of these people down. And I think hopefully, some of these people have time to talk, because as what became apparent this summer was that, everybody was pretty busy. It's everybody. It's the entire cycling industry's busy time. It's hard to corral some of these guys and, get them into talk. So hopefully over the winter, we can
100% agree with you. I need to read Kate's feature here. It's staring at me in the face. No, I 100% agree. It's that time of year. We need it, right? We need to chill, unwind, recharge, look back, absorb, appreciate, think about the whole season that has passed. We're mid-October. Looks like the road season's pretty much done. Although Tour Langkawi looks like there's some heavy hitters going there, which is always interesting. But we're pretty much wrapping up, and we'll soon start. I know it's already started, but we'll soon really start the cyclocross season, which I love maybe even more than road. And that'll take us through frickin' early February, which is already going to overlap with Tour Down Under, Joe, in mid-Jan. So
wow,
the off season doesn't exist, man.
No, it really doesn't, because in no time there, my favorite time of the season happens, Danny. That December training camp, where you get the you get the picture of the team training, but there's a handful of De Koenig guys mixed in with the Jumbo guys, because officially they can't change jerseys, so the first so there's a handful of guys where you're like, wait, there's an Emirates guy in there's a De Koenig guy, there's a Movistar guy in that Jumbo pace line, right? And
it's always so dumb, and everybody knows what's up. It's like, just let them.
Yeah, but I get it. That's my favorite time of the year. That early December pre-Christmas training camp, when they're somewhere in Spain or the there's in the Canary Islands or something, and there's a handful of guys still forced to wear their former team's kits. So
it's always so awkward. There was someone last year, I think, who came from EF who was a bad boy, and he had his new kit on and he got in big trouble. I don't know if it's Higita or someone else, but anyway, Joe, so I'm stoked, and I like the fall. I know everyone says that, but time to unwind. And, as a rite of passage, Joe, I just got my fenders put on today. So I'm looking forward to riding my mud guards on my road bike, my all-around
faux
gravel bike.
You had them put on, or did you put them on yourself?
I had them put on. And I'm proud to say that. I'm proud that I made.
What a dandy! You are a dandy.
Elitist. I came from the VIP tent. Put on my fenders.
Oh, you know what? I think we had the.
Oh shit! It was too complicated, Joe. It's a high-end road bike. Oh my god!
I get it. We've been in this for too long. We're not doing that anymore.
I feel like you sabotaged me on that one. I'm really one of you.